It is. You are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I get to hear? We hope not. So we wanted to put on around with the actual negotiation. And just, I know that we did introductions before, but just one more time. So that we can try and put names and faces again. Like, I know Martin really well.
She's been on the team right, but there are new faces across the table that I'm not familiar with, so I'd like to go review that. So let's get a quick the director of resources and chief executive. Yeah.
While policy and planning, I don't know.
Dimitri.
We'll still list council. Got it. Or secondary schools and student activities.
Those are.
Rusty, I work for Fairview.
Diane is the executive assistant. Al Smith is the executive assistant for general counsel and office.
All right, Pamela Leslie on high school business ed, and I'm the chief negotiator for LCTALCS.
Chris Siegel, executive director of Big Bang Ben for NBA, where I help LCTALCS.
Marching with my heart.
Go back.
Jonah Mundy, teacher at.
Say your first name again.
Jonah Mundy, first name Jonah, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm an EMT teacher at Freely.
What's the last name?
Chalmers.
Jacob Dummeldinger. Dummeldinger. Teacher Cognitive.
Scott Mazer.
That's awesome. Perfect. Wonderful. So I passed sort of the agenda that we worked on together to you guys, so that we know sort of where we're going to start. So what we'd like to do is try and get through our proposals today. I'm thinking that, we outlined this meeting for 2 hours, so we'd like to sort of stick with that timeframe. We'll go ahead and get started with our portion at the beginning here, which is the budget discussion, which will then lead into our initial compensation offer. Okay, so Naomi, you ready? Thank you.
Good afternoon. See how happy I am? I've passed out, but I want to go a little bit of what we ended up with the legislature. I probably heard the dollar after that. But as you know, the legislature made it look like we got a lot of money here. But what they did was roll up several of the categories into the base allocation. So it makes it look like we got like $12 extra dollars, but we still have to fund instructional material. I mean, they roll all that into the base. I'll go through that as we go there, but in the end, it looks like we got $16 million in that. Very false picture. We did get money, but not $16 million. What also has occurred here this year is, you know, that they took half of the family empowerment scholarships. So anybody can apply. Doesn't matter what your income is. So we're going to lose over $20 million of FTE from the family empowerment. This past year, we had almost $16 million family empowerment scholarship go from our district to private schools. So that is not going to ever go down unless they do away with it way past our time, I believe. But every year that it's going to keep going up because more and more people, because it doesn't matter how much you make, you can apply for the scholarship and send your child for a private school. So even schools like McClay or Holy County, I think there are the 2 schools that right now don't take a scholarship, but you think about their tuition as a parent. I never come to the board, but never thought about it actually. But you think about their tuition $15,000 a year. Well, if you get a scholarship for $8,000 and you're already paying $15,000. You're getting a break, but they'll still raise their tuition enough, but you'll still not pay as much as you would. So we anticipate a lot of the private schools doing that kind of stuff, and we're going to continue to lose children to the private school. We're losing a few to our charter schools. Not as huge as they were, because they're going more for the private schools than the charter schools, but we are losing children to the charter schools. So at this point in time, we know what our projections were for FTE. When we submitted our projections, do we know what we're going to end up having come October when we do that count? Absolutely not. It's a moving target. TCC's taken 200 of our children. They're opening their high school. We were told to reduce our FTE by 100, anticipating that they were only going to take 100 high schoolers. We were sent a letter from DOE to raise that to 200 because TCC has a waiting list. So they're going to take at least 200 of our high school kids. They may not all come from our schools, but the majority are going to come from Leon County schools. So we're getting hit from every area when it comes to FTE and how they're taking it. I mean, I'm going to say it. Their mission is to totally get rid of public education and give everybody their money and let them go wherever they want with their children. So it's slowly getting there. It's hitting a lot harder this year, mainly because of the TCC, the increase in the family empowerment, and the charter schools. So even though it looks like we got more money, the fact is we don't have those kids in the classroom. We don't get the funding, and that's what we're funded on. It's not just because they like us, they give us this money. We are funded because we have students. So if our student enrollment goes down again, like last year, we didn't grow last year, we didn't grow last year, we lost students. So we may grow a little bit. I don't anticipate growth at all. But that's based on looking at what we've done. So with all that wonderful good news to you, just so you know where we have to sit from where I sit. Okay, I'm that no person that sits there because I see what's happening, and I'm the one that if we don't have that money, we don't get the money. Kathy and I, we have to figure out how we're going to go to the superintendent and cover those kids we don't have. So saying that, the sheet that I sent you is just a quick, it's an overview of the FEFP as of the last session. Kathy and I honestly, we're probably going to scoot out after this because we got a deadline with the Democrat tomorrow. We'll wait for DOE to certify our millage rates because we have an ad going in the paper on Friday and we already close to being having the stuff ready because DOE hasn't certified yet. So when all was said and done after the session, the ending amount that it shows that we got as a district was $16.7 million. So you see that top up there, that's what it looks like. Out of that, the district, in meeting with the superintendent, the board, and all the leadership, is going to continue to fund this teacher salary increases. That's the portion. They rolled all of this up into that FEFP. They didn't break it down. So there was 2.6, almost $2.7 million that they funded us new money next year for the teacher salary increases. The charter schools get their portion. And so that'll end up being about $2.2 million for Leon County after the charter schools get their portion. The mental health allocation, they funded that separately. It's just they increased it $200,000. So we have to reduce that from the new money because that's part of the new money is that increase in mental health. That's a categorical. We have to spend that money there. So it was about 200,000 more. So that has to come out because that goes to mental health. Safe schools, they increased. Obviously, that's a hot area with the legislature, with the governor, with the whole state. They did increase us $550,000 in safe school dollars. So that had to be set aside also because that was part of the increase. Reading instruction, they did not fund that separately, but we have a lot of staff, reading coaches, teachers that are paid from those funds. So we pull that out because that was a categorical that they funded last year, but they rolled it into the FEFP this year. So that's 1.8 million that has to come out of that money. Instruction materials. They funded it last year as a categorical. It rolled up into that base FEFP this year. We still have to buy textbooks. We still have adoptions out there that we have to buy. So we pulled out what we got last year. The 2.5 is what we got last year. That's what we pulled out and set aside because we have a new adoption we just purchased one adoption this past spring going into the school year next year. There's another new adoption coming up next year that we have to pay for. Your teacher supply stipend, where they used to do that as a separate item, it rolled up into the FEFP. And they told us in the language, it says it's a minimum of $300 per teacher. That's what we will be allocating to the teachers, the $300 per teacher. And it comes to about $600,000 for our district. Now, once you take out all of those things, it leaves us $8.2 million. Well, they also, during the session, for whatever reason, they raised the retirement rate again. And they raised it not quite 2%. That's about $2.1 million increase in expenditures for the district. So that's got to come off the top. Then we had health insurance. Our health insurance increase was about 5%. That's about $1.2 million of a new expense that has to come off the top. So when you take all those costs, those anticipated expenditures out, it leaves about $5 million of new money this year. So that's what we have to work with the superintendent, the board. They made the decision on how that new money gets allocated. Do you have any questions?
They've already made the decision on how it's allocated? Okay, they're the ones that will make.
Right. No decisions have been made. Like I said, the tentative budget's going to the board next week. So everything. Any other questions?
And obviously that funding is really contingent upon students showing up, right? And being in the classroom, anything, in terms of, we've made projections in terms of how many students we anticipate being here, but for everyone that doesn't show up, it takes away from that figure. And so, that's why we are where we are right now. Just to lay out some of the priorities for the superintendent in terms of this year and next, that we've got approximately 90 positions right now. And these are not the interventionists that we've talked about in the past. We've got 90 teaching positions and guidance counselors that are currently funded by us that are not going to be funded moving forward after next year. So part of what his priority right now is to try and find ways to keep those positions. We don't want to be in a position next year where we have to eliminate classroom teachers and guidance counselors from our employment roles because we don't have money to pay for them. The estimated cost on that, what did he say it was? Around
About $9 million.
$9 million. And so, when we talk about having, $5 million of money left over, there are a lot of, uses for that money. And there are things that we're trying to prioritize so that we're able to keep teachers in our schools and serve our students in a positive. Okay. So where we're going to start, just in terms of our initial, what will come off at this point is our initial offer for compensation for 22-23.
And that's based off of what we just.
And that's based off what we just talked about. As long as you guys don't have any further questions about the current budget situation.
So 2 questions. First of all, the one that's burning for most people, when will the teacher supply stipends be available to pick up? That was one thing. We figured we might be able to ask that question to get some clarity on it. So
Okay.
that's first question.
We are working on those this week. We're waiting on one more school to verify their teachers, but we have to send that to the school. So once we get that one back, we're going to cut checks this year.
What's their name?
Totally.
And then the other piece is the $9 million that is being looked at with that reoccurring funds that are a part of the budget.
That's the thing is, it's not going to be on down the road.
So
They'll have to find recurring dollars to cover, but with the teacher, let me finish with the teacher leave or whatever. We will have them ready prior to teachers being at school. We have to legally till July 31st. We're working on them now. Hopefully we'll have them ready next week, but it's clear we can cut checks. We're talking 2,000 checks, and the way our system does it, it does not separate them by school, so we have to go employee teacher by teacher by teacher. And we can't get it. We've tried everything on Discover to get it to the cost center on it for us. It won't do it, so it takes us at least a day to get it all separated out and ready to go. But it'll be before the teachers return to the school Sundays. And it will be $300.
okay.
On your question about the non-recurring, at this time it is non-recurring, but it's also in the superintendent plan. He's working to try to come up with, as the years go, like he's wanting to have enough to cover that first year that they're not covered, like next 24-25, we still have the ESSER dollars. 23-24 we have for next year. The 24-25 is when the ESSER dollars go away, and that's when he wants to at least carry the guidance counselors he's hired and 2 of the interventionists. It comes to like 91 positions that he's trying to fund, which is about in today's dollars, $9 to $10 million. In another year, we don't know what, but he's trying. He would like to have enough to cover through 24, 25, and then after that, he would be looking at other areas where he can cut back to have recurring dollars.
Any other questions? Ready to go over the TISA? Okay, so basically what we've outlined here is the teacher salary increase allocation amount of money. And we're proposing that, first off, it's $2.2 million, right? And like last year, I mean, we're open to input from the LCTA on how you guys would foresee us spending this money. We're not imposing anything other than what we have right now is $2.2 million, right? And so as we prioritize this, what we'd really like to see is to get to 47.5. All of our, this year, with the legislature, they took all of the restrictions out of play with regard to getting 47.5, but it doesn't mean that they will do that next year. And there's still a priority that we get to 47.5. There's just no 150%, right? So what we'd like to do is spend $800,000 of that $2.2 million right off the bat and get to 47.5 for those individuals who are not there yet, right? From there, and as we've discussed in the past, we have a problem with compression. And and by that we mean basically anyone that is from year 0 until right now, right around year 15, is at $47,000, right? So there's no differentiation between the levels. Now, as we raise the amount this year, that that differentiation actually is compressed even more and goes to year 17. Okay, so what we'd like to do is say, take the remaining portion of that money that we have available and create differentiation in the salary schedule, not only for the people that are currently in those jobs, but moving forward as well. So basically you would have those individuals at year 0 starting at 47.5, and then we're proposing $50 differential. We know it's not a lot, but it's something, right? It is a level of differentiation that at least establishes a mark for us. So we go from 47.5, 47.550, 46, 46, 50, 47, all the way up to 17. If you look on the back, that's where we have our proposed salary schedule. And at year 18, we would essentially just pick up with the schedule as it is now, right? So it's, in terms of what would the individual teachers get, it would be based upon their years of experience. With those individuals with 18 years or above getting $900.
You're getting $900 plus that 500, not 500 at all, $900 flat.
It would be 900 flat
Where
because
they're
they're
at.
already over, because they're already
Okay.
over 47.
Okay.
And of course, as we go forward, there may be additional funding available to go on top of this. This is the TISA money that we have available at this point in time. But really that funding is contingent upon the enrollments that come forward. So it's not like we're anticipating an agreement to something today as it relates to this, because we really don't know what those numbers look like until our students show up. You have questions about it?
Yes, so looking at this chart on the back, let's say you're a year 8 teacher. Right now, you're getting paid $47,000 in today's world, right? And then I'm not only getting the 500 to get to 47.5, but I'm also getting re-stepped at year 8. So now I'll be at year 8, 47,900. And so that's what would take place, is not only
That would go
You would
from
take the years of
47 now to
experience.
47,900. If
Okay.
that's the level that we're at.
if that's the level that they're at. So you would then replace everybody. So now, in addition to the 500, everyone's getting re-stepped.
We would really be, we wouldn't be re-stepping them because we don't have a step pay plan.
Exactly, yeah.
We have a salary schedule that is really applicable only to new hires, right? But what we would be doing is essentially putting them at that level, right? So it would appear like they're getting re-stepped, but I don't want to say that they're being re-stepped because a step indicates that, you know, you're going to move up.
Next year.
And rather than having a step plan where you have a step each year, what we have is really a negotiation process whereby the individual is at a starting point, right? Whether it's, you know, if they're at 13, their starting point will be 48,150 because we've established that this year, right?
Okay.
But, you know, next year, the negotiated salary won't be that next step, which would be 48,200. It would actually be what's negotiated with LCTA on top of their current salary. So if it's a, you know, if it's a 3% increase, it would be a 3% increase to their current position. And then eventually what we want to try, I mean, one of the things that we run into with regard to compression in general is at some point we need to sort of stop with the scale moving, because the not with the individual teachers receiving increases, but stop moving the base of the scale, because it has an impact on compression, right? If you move it every single year, then there's really no differentiation, and it leads to more leapfrog, which we discussed.
So my question is that, so when you look at 17 years beyond, there is no change with the current pay scale.
That's
Is that correct? But it's, so for new hires, nothing is changing. But if you already work here, you're getting 900 increase to the base salary. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then that differentiates now between teachers who have been here and teachers who are just coming in.
Right. People that are just being hot, like as of October 2nd, or sorry, August 2nd, when we say this goes into place, right? We would hire people and we would place them based upon their years of experience, based on current contract language as to how we do salary placements. And that's based upon their years of verifiable experience, right? And one of the good things is that now that we've talked about leapfrogging being a primary issue to address, right, along with compression. But what we're seeing is that because of the increases that we've gotten over the course of the last couple of years, you know, like last year it was $3,300 for new teachers, $2,200 for better teachers. That addition has actually helped eliminate some of that leapfrogging that was in place, right? So, well, we're not saying it's not still a problem, but we do anticipate that when we have a chance to really take a look at where does everyone compare to the schedule, that because of the focus from the district and from the legislature on raising teacher salary, we've actually eliminated a lot of those leapfrogging instances because we haven't changed the scale as we've gone. Right.
It looks like year 17 is less than what's currently on the salary schedule.
That's true.
Yes.
We'll fix that. We're not going to go backwards on the salary schedule.
I know it.
But but that's partially because right now, like I said, where the compression is only up to 15, but as we make the adjustment, we're projecting out that it's going to continue to sort of gobble up those additional steps on the schedule. So we obviously will fix that.
How would you explain this to someone in terms of what their salary increase will be based off of this proposal? Because the numbers are the numbers that are here, but we know that based off of placement, some folks with the same years of service are at different spots. So what is and it's just adding to what
they're going to receive the dollar amount that is equivalent to their years of experience, right? So like if they're at 47,000 now, right? Then we know right off the bat they're going to get 500 to get to 47.5. And then if they've got 10 years of experience, based on how this is set out, those individuals would get an additional 500 because it's $50 times 10 years of experience. So those individuals would end up getting $1,000 on top of as an add-on to their current salary. So it wouldn't be like we're going to a step plan because as we discussed, step plans don't exist, but this is just sort of an outline of what the schedule would look like moving forward.
So, but the difference between 10 and what is currently the beginning salary of 47 is $1,000 difference, but they're only gonna get 500. Like you said, 10 times 50.
10 times,
So that's
so we're
500 plus the 550. So even though it says $1,000 should be the difference from 47,000, the person will only get 550 when it on paper says it's supposed to be 1,000.
No, I think that, so if you look at where we've proposed it, they're sitting currently at 47,000.
And they
Right,
go
they'll
step
get,
10,
they'll get
go
500, they'll get 500 to get a 47.5, and then they'll get $50 per year, which will 500 equals 1,000.
So now you're 1,000 there. Gotcha. So they're no less than 1,000, 11 would be 1,050, so on and so forth. Except for when we go 17 and above, it's flat 900. Correct. So again, we're, okay. And
going back to what I said when we first started, you know, we are open to other options. You know, we're open to, you know, we have $2.2 million, but so like within the $2.2 million, we have, this is the best way that we can see to do it, right? However, we do know that there's some additional money out there that's contingent on people showing up and being in our seats, right? That we can add, and that may affect how we go about this distribution. Could be that instead of having, you know, once we know that that money is available and that it's going to be coming to us, it could be that we go to a different amount that separates and creates differentiation.
Could we go to a caucus?
Absolutely.
It's at 1:42 right now, maybe come back at 2 p.m. on the dot and we'll.
Absolutely. And then when we get back to I mean, at this point, we're not necessarily looking for a counter. But
We do not have a financial counter
Okay.
today on this.
so when we come back, we'll just plan to deal with the next issue on the agenda, which is essentially you guys talking about proposal for Article 8.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah, maybe we'll have some questions in regards to this after we meet, but we don't have a printed out schedule today.
Absolutely. So we. You're ready for a second. So what I wanted to clarify is, as many of you guys are aware, we went away from a step pay plan back in like 2015, right? And since that time, what we've used is a salary schedule. And the salary schedule is simply used, it's only used for one purpose. And that is to place individuals who are coming in with levels of experience, right, from other districts, other places, right? It is the way that we determine individual salaries, you know, whether it's, you know, camera charge, whoever's there, right, is that they got placed on that schedule. And then subsequently, they received add-ons. That's what we call them, add-ons. And the add-ons are essentially the negotiated raises that we have put in place each year with LCTA. So like, okay, so you had your placement, and then you have a number of add-ons that together add up to what your annual salary is, right? So for the purpose of this conversation, this is really to be used as an example because it's highly dependent on where we land, right? But its purpose is only to set salaries for new employees. Everyone else will get, their salaries will be determined based on the methodology. So like in this year, it will be, so where we will start is their current salary, this year's total agreement, whatever we agree upon from a negotiations perspective, will be an add-on. So that amount, whether it's $1,000 or $900 or whatever, right, will simply be an add-on that's captured and added to their current rate that together equal their annual compensation. And so when we look at the methodology here, everyone above 18 at this point in time on this schedule, as it's proposed now, will receive $900 as an add-on it does not relate to this schedule at all at that point because they're current employees. If they're at $50,000 a year, they'll get $900 added to that $50,000, and their new salary will be $50,000. Does that make sense? I know that it's sort of a convoluted process, and it's a function of changes that have been made to the legislature, but it's the way that it's been done here, and it's sort of the way that the system is set up. So we've got numerous add-ons. There's certain years where there were not increases, right? But every year that there was an increase, the salary increase was an add-on to a base rate. Make sense?
So we obviously don't have a money proposal back to you today. The general feedback on this proposal is it's slightly disappointing to not see LCS putting any additional money forward, right? We know that TISA is given to you from the government. You've put that forward. We were expecting that amount of money, but we're disappointed to not see any additional funds from your own reserves put into this plan to advance salary schedules. At this point, it doesn't seem like some of the increases are enough, or they're just going to equal what maybe potential healthcare increases are going to be for our members, in addition to what the inflation rate has gone up, right? So you're looking at the members here breaking even, if not still coming up under, depending on where they fall as relates to the cost of goods going up and everything around us, right? And I know that you all are experiencing that on your end of the bargain as well. But we're not going to accept this today.
Okay.
So we hope that the next time we come together, we can find some more money. Maybe we can all play the lotto this weekend and just pool our funds
Make a
together.
donation, right?
Yeah, we can just make a slight donation.
I think that
Non-recurring funds. Oh, bummer. But one year we could do it big.
Well, as we discussed, we anticipate that we will know more,
Yes,
you know, as you know, our enrollment.
yeah,
And, you know, that, you know, we're not saying that there's not money available. What we're saying is we're not 100% sure at this point in time, how much of this money is going to actually be in place, right? So when we know what portion of this money that's remaining will be available to us based on enrollments, then we'll obviously update our proposal.
and so it's the district's priority at this point in time to continue to set aside the money for those future positions.
The current positions.
Well, their current positions, but right now they're being funded, but for their
Right.
future funding, I should say. So it's the priority there to set aside that money for the future funding of those positions. But also the positioning of, there could be a dramatic drop in students. And if there's a dramatic drop in students, do we even need?
Oh,
these?
gotcha. Right. I understand
Right,
what you're saying.
like if we're experiencing,
Cool.
if the sky is falling and it falls, what happens to? You can't, are we gonna just retain all the teachers at 10 students class size?
I don't think that's a reality, but. Right.
Okay, so that's what it sounds like. It sounds like that's what we're
Well,
planning.
no, what we have is 90 teachers. And these aren't
90?
these aren't interventionists that we were discussing before, because there's many more interventionists that
Yes.
we're prepared to allow to sort of recirculate into the district.
Mhm.
These are 90 real teachers, you know, that are in front of students every single day, and guidance counselors,
Yep, okay. Okay.
you know, that are in real positions that we're looking to try and retain
Mhm.
moving into the future. Because right, you know, before the pandemic, those jobs didn't exist. And we obviously all recognize that we've had conversations ad nauseam about all of the discipline problems, all of the other issues associated with the pandemic that we're dealing with. A lot of those positions were put in, especially the guidance counselors, put in place to deal with those issues
Are,
that were brought about, and we're recognizing are still here as part of the pandemic.
are guidance counselors placed by school site per number of students? So if a school site saw a vast reduction in students, would they also lose guidance counselors?
That's how the staffing plan in general is
Right,
set up.
set up, right, okay. Okay. I don't. Team?
And back to your point, I mean, the staffing plan is based on enrollment.
Yeah.
So if the school doesn't have the enrollment, then they lose the units. So yeah, so to answer your question, if the sky did fall,
Mhm.
we would ultimately lose those units. We wouldn't be able to retain teachers.
So you said 90 positions, and that's guidance counselors and teachers. What is the breakdown of that? About half.
There's 29, sorry, 69 regular teachers, and then the remaining portion are guidance counselors. So
On the money.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So the 21 guidance counselors that were added, those weren't in the district prior to 2020? Okay. And those 90 positions are going to be reserved above keeping teachers that have been here past the 15 years? I mean, that's more of a priority than to retain teachers that have been here forever?
we're looking to not lay people. Right, so ultimately, those 69 teachers are teachers that are in the staffing plan as it is, right? So right now, they're currently funded by ESSER funds. We want to keep those teachers, right? If we lost those teachers, those would, I mean, if we lost the funding for those teachers, essentially, we would have to lay off the teachers that are in those slots.
Okay, so the teachers that are in those slots, they're teaching, like I teach civics.
Yeah.
I teach 5 periods of civics a day. Those are teachers that are teaching 5 periods a day. Okay, and they're not in our staffing plan,
They are in our staff. They're funded by ESSER. They're funded by ESSER.
and they were not there before.
Yes. This is federal money.
No, those positions weren't there before.
Yeah,
in terms of whether or not the positions, the actual positions were in place. I would say, yes, we have had.
You've
teachers
added
in place.
90 positions to our unit.
Yes, there's 69 new units that are in the staffing plan because of ESSER funds.
And it's important to remember,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, can I give you examples, just so everybody can be on the same page, let's just do the school example. Okay, so prior to the pandemic, we didn't have like the reading, for some schools, full-time reading coach position, the math coaching position, and I think with math intervention position, okay? So if you took teachers and moved them into those positions, right? So these 3 positions freed up, you moved 3, you went out and you hired them. You follow me? Did everybody follow me? so
Those are
far?
2 different things. So you move them into the positions or you hire new
Right,
people?
so the
Okay.
district came and said, we have these 3 intervention positions that we got from ESSA dollars that you could use at your school. One being a full-time reading coach, okay? One being math intervention and a math coach, okay? When you move those 3 people out into those positions, you then were allowed to go and hire 3 more. Are you following me? So then you place those teachers. Now, if you have a budget reduction, right here, and if you talk back during the recession, you remember how this goes. If I have to get rid of folks, okay, I mean, I think that's what we're just cutting to the chase here. You would then be looking at those folks that you hired on, right? Because they were the last to come on board. You would have to say, I'm gonna have to let you go because those 3 people who I had in those intervention positions, I've got to bring them back into those teaching positions. Did I?
But they're teaching right now. They're teaching or are they at the district?
No, those are-
Intervention
They're at the
teachers. Yeah.
Each
Remember, I
class.
put the intervention people,
Yes.
all right? So
And
I
these
can read-
interventionists are actually teaching classes to make our class sizes smaller.
Sure,
Correct.
but what, but they're saying,
No,
no.
Well,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
They're classes,
The
right?
intervention position, that's why I said that. I gave you the intervention position, intervention.
That's not the 9.
That's not, yeah.
that's not the 9.
I know, but.
The teachers that we're talking about retaining are teaching. They're not interventionists. They're 69 of them are teachers.
Right.
22, the remaining portion, 22 difference, right? To get to 91 are guidance counselors.
That's why I use
So
the
that-
session.
We can move on to class size, class load.
Let me ask a follow-up question to Brett. Was there a methodology to who you shifted on or off ESSER? There seems to have been something with guidance counselors went on ESSER, maybe your new guidance counselors. Did you do all of the 6th grade math teachers went on ESSER, or was it random?
I'll have to get that. I don't know the actual.
Okay.
I think at this point in time, this is nice to look at, and we will continue to look at it moving forward and hope that there are additional monies available as we go forward and figure out how to capture those additional monies into this year's salary proposal. And in an effort to continue on here, we will move on to class size caseload in Article 8, okay? These are your copies. And then any extras we'll bring back to the side. Kim, any, yeah, any extras, you guys already have your, we'll pass to our team back here.
They need their copy, right?
Yeah, this is for them.
Right, yeah. They get theirs first. Anything extra will go to the back.
And I need one more, Kim, because I guess I need one extra. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have class size, class load. I actually don't have anything for EFD caseload, this proposal, but anticipate that there might be some coming. We proposed some language to this last session in a form of a matrix in regards to comp time, and we have remodified this and work this language in response to the feedback that we received last session and some language that we got approved last session in regards to ESE with planning time. So 8.0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all the same. And I just decided to add everything I wanted to as a team down here in 8.06. Why break it up? Okay, so 8.06 is class size or course preparation overage planning time. A lot of the concern amongst the teachers is the idea that when there's overage of students in the class or an overage of class preps at the middle and high school level, that they don't have enough planning time to accommodate that. So instead of comp time, we have shifted to additional planning time for those teachers. So in grades pre-K through 3, if the class size exceeds 20, the state mandate is 18, so we've given a buffer of 2. The teacher of record will receive 2 additional planning days per FTE count. The head count of students will occur during the FTE window once in October and February. So we had discussed how is this going to be counted and when in our previous matrix. Well, now we've determined that we all do an FTE count at each school site. Teachers are responsible for the attendance during that period. That's when we'll accommodate that count. In grades 4 through 8 and 9 through 12, if the average class size, so they teach multiple sections, exceeds 22 and 25 respectively, that's the state mandated size, the teacher of record will receive 2 additional planning days per FTE count. The head count of students will occur during the FTE window once in October and February. So same thing as the pre-K through 3 language. How this is done, class average is determined by the number of students in the room divided by the number of class periods of instruction. If a teacher teaches 2 courses during the same class period, they are counted as 1 class, right? So bodies in the room is what we're looking at here. Student interns or TAs do not count towards the class average and should be excluded. So I know at some of the high schools, they, a teacher could have a TA each class period. We're not counting that in our group here. The above clauses apply to all courses that have a state test, so progress monitoring or EOC, an AP test, a CAPE certification test, or have primary instruction conducted at a desk via textbook or computer. So unfortunately, PE and band probably don't fall in this category, but a lot of our electives will, because they tend to have an overage of students. Due to the unique structure of a pre-K classroom, all pre-K courses shall fall under this provision. So pre-K is special. We know that some of those kids can't sit down for longer than 5 minutes, so therefore we're going to include them as well. D, the teacher is responsible for using the teacher, so that's who's going to be responsible for this, using the attendance during the FTE window to calculate their class average and submit it to their administration for the additional planning days. Counts need to be submitted within 5 school days of the end of the FTE window. So some parameters around it. Middle and high school teachers that have more than 3 course preparations defined as different course codes will receive 1 additional planning day each 9 weeks. This applies to all courses, including core courses, electives, performing arts, foreign languages, and physical education. Middle and high school teachers are only eligible for 1 type of additional planning days, course preparation overage or class size overage. Course preparation overage will be determined first. Ideally in middle and high schools, your courses are set for you, by pre-planning week. So therefore we can look at your schedule and say, hey, you're good to go. If ineligible for course preparation, a teacher may submit class size overage during that FTE window count. Planning days will expire at the end of the year that they are earned and will be coded as temp duty. And then we have a little provision here for elementary. Elementary special area teachers will get 1 extra planning day each 9 weeks to accommodate for the loss of preparation time that arises throughout the year for various coverages that occur, so on and so forth. So this breaks down, kind of mimics some of the ESE language that we had previously approved to get additional planning time for them. And then an example of this is I pulled a focus report for Childs, Fairview, Cobb, Leon, and Rickards. And teachers that are impacted by this, I went through and determined by the class sizes that they had given, averaging them out, and then the number of preps based on course size. So Childs, teachers that have more than 3 preps would be 15. More than 25 students in a classroom averaged across their 5 or 6 classes was 31 teachers. Teachers that had both were only 6. So when it comes to, determining one or the other, Rickards in a different pile, Fairview and Cobb were a little harder to determine because you all have a homeroom, which we can negotiate. I don't want to talk about that one. Homeroom was funny. Rickard's class prep overage was 23 teachers had more than 3 course codes assigned to them. And class size overage, more than 25 students in a room was 20 teachers. And only 2 had a combination of the 2. And then at Cobb had 1 with an overage in preps and then 10 with overage in class sizes. So bigger than 20 is 2 students in a room. Fairview, I don't have your numbers because the homeroom is factored in there and we weren't sure quite if we're counting that as a prep or not and how we want to determine that. But Cobb, I know they have a homeroom, but it wasn't reflected on the chart. So that's some like background on where that comes from. And I understand that when we're looking at preps in a band room, right, you have to, there's multiple levels of band, right? So they all have different course codes and we can discuss how that works with this kind of chart. But I think the expectation among parents and students is that if you're in a culinary class and it's 3 levels of culinary, that those are each 3 different classrooms and 3 different environments. And you're not repeating culinary 1 for 3 years in a row. So that would be 3 different preps. And for some of our elective courses, when there's only 1 person in that specialty, they're getting slammed with multiple preps, foreign languages and so on. So that's where that derives from. Thanks.
So when you talk about these planning days, are you're essentially equating them to the ESC days that we gave last year in that, same rules would basically apply to those individuals, those positions that they would be on site.
Yes.
That they would have basically the day free to execute the planning.
Yes. And I imagine as we move forward in language, if you can't come with a counter proposal that might disclose how that's used.
Make this in consideration.
You have an article 10 response. Any questions?
So do you want to go through and do your supplemental discussion first, or you want?
No. We'll say that for the end. It's more of a conversation as opposed to language.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And this is sort of it's more of a we're open to further discussion on some of these items. As a group, we're going to look at a lot of this and say, okay, well, we've just redlined the whole process once again, like we've done in the past, right? I think that what we've tried to do is be extremely thoughtful in terms of what we can accommodate and what we can't. Also, there are things that are here that we discussed last year, and essentially we are declining them for the same reasons that we declined them last year, right? And so there are some aspects fine tuning to this language that I feel like we can do. We can go through here, and it'll be a work in progress until we can get to a point where we agree on language, or we'll retain our contract language. Okay. So as you, if you will, starting, going back to personnel files, okay? As we've sort of worked in the past, green is language that we've accepted, blue is language that we are proposing new language, and red is language that you guys proposed. And in many cases, like, we've crossed through, that's where we've rejected the language that has been proposed, okay? So starting with, we start with the first, to make sure, I'm not really good with colors all the time, so. 10.02, personnel files. Really what we've done here is stricken the district or school site qualifier in front of personnel file, and just saying that these materials, the derogatory materials related to work performance or other matters that may be cause for discipline that are to be placed in the employee's personnel file as a generalized term is what we feel like is appropriate in this passage. Then we have B, where we have added some provisions to the language. Employees may review and copy the materials in there. Once again, same reasoning. School site / district is slashed and replaced for just personnel file under conditions necessary to provide for its integrity and safekeeping. The employee may be charged the authorized district charge for copying such materials. And then this is new language. No record in a personnel file which is confidential and exempt from inspection and copying pursuant to applicable law shall be disclosed except as provided by the applicable law. I'm assuming that you guys would understand why we would want to add that in there. If the law says we can't disclose something, then we're not going to, we don't need to disclose it as a function of the contract. And then employees will be granted access to the personnel files within 3 business days of the 3 business days of the request. Okay. Then we go to 10.04. Reimbursement for damaged personal property. We are not able to accept the provisions that you've outlined in that first paragraph where it says the district will reimburse the employee the amount of their insurance deductible. We have proposed that we cut from the verbiage expensive watches and the example of such as cell phones, add in and accessories. We're not in agreement to include in the event where employee's car is damaged on the district's property by a student as an act of vandalism. The employee will seek necessary repairs for reimbursement. And then we're also similarly not willing to add if an employee is the victim of theft in the course of the legal performance of his or her assigned duties, unless such loss is covered by insurance reimbursement is obtained from the sources, the district will reimburse the employee the amount of their insurance deductible. 10.5 for renaming classroom discipline and control. We similarly are not willing to accept the provisions outlined in 10.05A 1 and 2 or C 1 through 5. We don't have an issue with what you've outlined in part in 10.06. Obviously, so what we've outlined as being acceptable would be if a teacher has an assault or battery committed against them, they would have the option to request paid leave immediately following the incident. Now, whether or not, I think that under the circumstances, it would be the administrator's, discretion to determine whether or not that would be appropriate. But we certainly don't have any problem with a a teacher making that request in those circumstances, and for the factors of the situation to determine whether or not it would be appropriate for that teacher to go home, right? So obviously, if the teacher experienced injuries or something along those lines, or was extremely upset, then it would be within the power of that administrator to allow for that individual to take the remaining portion of that day off, and ultimately to make a determination about future, so, but it's not something that we want to capture in contract language. I think that we feel like that's the discretion of our administrators in determining what would be appropriate based upon the circumstances of the instance. Okay. The same would go same general process with 2. If a teacher is threatened in a classroom, they would have the option to request paid leave following the incident. Obviously, if they can articulate the reason for that and the need for that, then it would be appropriate for the administrator to approve it, right? If a fight between a student occurs in a classroom, the teacher will have the option to request class coverage immediately after the incident. Once again, they would have the ability to have that discussion with their administrator and determine whether or not that would be appropriate based upon the circumstances. And I'm sure that there are many times in which something occurs in a classroom and it wouldn't necessarily lead to the need for that teacher to take multiple days. So what we're saying is that in those circumstances, basically, it would be incumbent upon the administrator and that teacher to work out what's needed, which I think is very reasonable. And so essentially what we've cut out of the language are the mandated provisions where, essentially you guys have proposed that very objective standards are met in each circumstance. And we feel like not every circumstance is the same, that in some circumstances it would be appropriate and it would be within the provisions of the administrator's role to allow for those absences, right? In others, they wouldn't. All right, moving now to 10.07. We are including the line in green in 10.07B. An administrator or district employee shall follow up with a reporting employee on the outcome of the report within a reasonable time frame, if appropriate. Okay. Once again, there's a lot of things, and we've had this conversation on an ongoing basis. There's a lot of things that are going on at all of these schools, and for us to tie response times to certain hours within the contract, it's just not. There are priorities that come up every single day. So we're not willing to agree to a specific time frame, but we are willing to agree that we should respond in a reasonable time frame based on the circumstances that are going. Okay.
If appropriate.
Well, yeah, if appropriate, and there may be instances where a response is not, it wouldn't even be appropriate.
I'll point out it's under the section titled assault on employee. So presumably we're giving I know a lot happens within 48 hours of the school site. We should float employee assault towards the top of that list, I think.
Right. And what we're saying, and the language, if appropriate, simply is in every single, if I'm in a constant conversation with you, if I've not left your side at all, then would it be appropriate for me to have to respond? I've been there the entire time. So I mean, it would always be appropriate to be involved with individuals whenever they're the subject of an assault, right? But as it stands, there are times when the response isn't necessary.
This is also inappropriate in relation to credible threats. If I report that there's a report of a credible threat, and then I ask, what was the outcome of that report? Did we do something? if appropriate, the answer could just be, I have no response to you. Because it's not appropriate to disclose that to the teacher that reported it. Is that,
If there's a legitimate reason for that, holding that information back, if there's a safety interest that is associated with holding that information back, that could be an example of. I think that the intent here is that there needs to be flexibility built into it, right? And the language doesn't always 100% apply. So allowing for that flexibility in language is important to us. All right, 10.08, removal of students from the classroom. What we've done here in one of the contact lists shall be provided to employees at the beginning of each school year and updated as needed. Then we are striking the proposed language that reads as an appropriate phone list and flow chart of conduct shall be provided to employees at the beginning of each school year. This will be updated as needed for employee role changes and resent out to the staff at the school site for the best points of contact. Essentially, we're just replacing that language with language. Semantics here in B, so it's like, okay, in B1, send or request an escort, right? Call for an escort, request an escort. We feel like it's a better utilization of verbiage. We're adding in B 10.04 B4 A. Committee membership must include at least the following 2 teachers, right? Accepting that language. And then see the records requesting that language, or accepting that language. 10.09 A, accepting individual records, adding for the current school year, and then accepting shall be available to all teachers of record for the current school year to create the best educational environment for that student. We still have concerns that relate to FERPA for multi-year disclosure, but we are in agreement that individual records within that school year can be disclosed for teachers that have that student. And so, we're obviously open to counters. This is our position right now as it relates to this article. So did you say you don't want to discuss something with today?
I do, but it's not a language situation. It's a conversation about how we're going to move forward with that language and supplement charts and what's going on right now. So
Okay. What I can do is then I'll move forward and discuss Article 3.
Perfect. That's fine. Any big questions that we discussed today?
You talked about the deletions on 10.05, but we didn't give a rationale. Is there?
I did. The rationale is simply that we don't want to objectively define those things. We want that to be a decision that's made by in collaboration between the administrator and the teacher.
So this was in classroom discipline and control.
About the different consequences, not the time off.
I guess in my follow-up question on that other point, yes, we have provided objective standards that can be universally applied. So the question that is would every principal treat the same situation equally that occurs at school? Would the outcome be the same? If we leave it to the principal and
I think that the job of the principal is to take in the facts of the situation and make the best possible decision. Is every single event the same? No. Outcomes.
Well, I'm talking about a singular event. Would every principal have the same determination based off of the facts in that? As how they would respond to it? Because we've given the objective standards and you're saying case by case, which understandably so, but would you say that every principal would respond the same? And if not, then that creates.
I think that they would
working
respond similarly based on certain, all of our principals go through very similar training. Right, and are charged with the same job, right? So ultimately, given the same circumstances, then you're highly likely to get, a very similar response that takes into account the variables of that situation. So it's not going to be wildly different. I mean, would you agree as a principal? That generally speaking, you guys are going to take in the information and process it very simple. Right? Exactly the same.
So Childs treats things the same as Lincoln, as Rickards, as Godby. Gilchrist treats situations the same as Sealy, Oak Ridge, and Roberts. That's what you're saying.
No, what I'm saying is that they will be done not exactly the same. The input to the situation. Right, so.
Wait,
Can you guarantee that it's going to be the same? No, you are correct. It will not be the exact same. All I'm saying is that our administrators are professionals.
No one's questioning the
And
professionalism of
and
this.
will deal with the circumstances in a way where they take into consideration the variables that are present in front of them and then make a determination as to what best fits that circumstance.
So to the question, would they all respond the same type? The answer would be no.
But similar.
4 at least at my school site alone that are filing referrals, and that would come and pull a student out. And then within those 4 that are assigned administrative type roles, well, then we have 4 people that are hall monitors that would be walkie and radio, but I don't have a radio. So I have no way to get in touch with the hall monitor without calling somebody else to have them then walkie somebody else. And that's what we're talking about, a flow chart. I know at our smaller sites and they don't have as many people, it might not be as prevalent as an issue, but when we're looking at a large campus that's got, you know, from one city block down to the neighborhoods, how are we getting in touch with people and what's the best way to get in touch with them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just saying, it's different at different sites.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes, like, for example, you're at Leon,
Yeah.
right? Your building is an older one. Everybody's like this, you go up very high, there's all these corners and hallways. I'm like South Georgia, where everything is spread out, right? Okay, because if there's a fight in a building way over there, now, you know, back in the day, I could run pretty good, but I ain't certainly gonna do that now. You okay? I'm just being real. Okay, so you have different relay systems. You know, I know, like, at least on our hallways, we have like radios with certain teachers every so often so that we can get to their action on our radio system. Because you have to have that, especially when you're talking about people who are closer to being adults. The fights can get pretty rough. So again, but that is something that those people in that building have to manage. I mean, like, the things that I might put in place, another school may not do that per se. You know, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to fish off. I'm saying you absolutely correct. You should know where to go, right? I mean, and this is just as important we're talking about when you're bringing on subs. Right, when subs come into the building, like, who do you go to if something happens?
Well, and really what it boils down to is you guys want to come at us with, we want timeframes, we want within 48 hours, we want all of these objective standards for our response. Well, every bit of administrative burden that you place on, you know, from this contract on the very few administrators that are in each one of these buildings, it decreases our ability to be responsive to those timeframes that you're asking for. I mean, the bottom line is they're going to, as a principal, they're going to communicate to the staff sort of what that flow is, right? And if we need to include the flow in the language, we'll do that. But we're not going to include that every single time that the flow changes, we're going to update it and reissue an org structure so that you guys have the latest version on your desk. That can happen through informal communication, through faculty meetings, through, you know, say, hey, so-and-so, our dean position has now changed. It's X, you'll need to contact X. That person, you know, everyone will take that information in without having to create additional administrative.
Don't want to create more jobs for anyone because we know principals continually get more jobs than, you know, they got a lot of hats, okay? But the issue is, what we're saying here is we don't want to have objective standards because it's a burden on the principal. So is it not an objective standard on the teachers that they have to do certain things by certain times to get things done? And those are standardized. And so
it's amazing
there are
that we've
certain
made it
things-
for how many years has the school district operated without having org structure?
We always want to improve,
I
don't
mean,
we?
The bottom line is everyone has their responsibilities, and what you're asking for is just additional responsibility on the back of the principals.
But
Which we feel like we can meet the demands of the focus of the article without having to put out.
There are times where people have said, well, you shouldn't have contacted them. You should have contacted so-and-so. You should have done this. You should have. No one knows that unless it's provided to them in a formal manner.
Yeah, and I think
And
that
so-
the original intent of the language was twofold. Was one, for who are we contacting when admin is off campus, right? Because sometimes there's like administrative things. And you all disappear, administrative, and then there's somebody left on site. But I don't know, up in my classroom bubble, that all 4 admins today are off campus at the admin training. So then I'm calling 4 numbers before I go, oh, okay, let me hit the 5th. Okay, that was the one intent of the language. The second intent of the language was when you bring on someone that's not familiar with the campus, right? Martina and I are very familiar with our campus. Kim comes and subs for my class one day. She doesn't know by looking at the phone list in my room what I should be calling and who she should be calling for an event. So that was kind of the intent of the language, was in the absence of either the regular scheduled staff or the regularly scheduled administrative people, how does that flow work when they aren't there, and how are people being told to contact?
You know, we could get with, me and Alicia could get with the schools, but I know when I was a principal, when the sub came in, we gave them a list of who to call, this is what you do. So that's a site issue. I'm sure most of them still do. It was like, there is no escorts. Please call if you have anything. Do not let kids in the bathroom.
Different at each school,
Right.
because
There
in
was
your
a
chain of
list.
order, at one school, you may say, you know, they may say AP's dean and then like a teacher resource. At another school, you may not say that. You may not go in that order because that's not their area of expertise, right? So that's the part where there's.
Yeah, and I think as teachers move around from school site to school site at this time of the year, we're gonna come on August 10th and I need to call somebody. Well, my old school site, we did it this way. This school site, now it's done this way, and it's the 8th day I've been working there, and I
I'm
don't
sure
know
every
that.
site will have that on August 2nd. That goes over that, the flow of
Yeah.
what, who to call. I've never heard of a principal not going over that.
So it didn't happen.
Your situation, I'm not, I'm gonna say it happened, that you knew who to call, that you would know who to call on a situation. Well, if there is issues, please let us know, because me and Anisha will take care of that, because that is one of the things in the to-do that we go over with all the principals. Make sure that they should do, I mean, follow through with contact and how to do things at your school site.
So
I mean, all we're
we're
trying to
talking
do.
about a fluid thing, right?
I
Because
don't
it
even
changes
get a
quite
fluid
often.
one here at the county. I have to call to find out. I don't have.
But,
I don't
but
know
you have an
exactly-
emergency happening in my classroom. I have seconds to think about it. I'm picking up a phone. I need to know who to call.
I agree, and that should be, I'm pretty sure we.
When it changed,
They also should be some operating. So give you an example. So let's say like, which happens, let's say your AP over discipline and the dean are out.
Okay.
That's a real scenario, right?
very serious.
So like, this is the thing you should go over in your building, like, hey, you call the receptionist, or you call the secretary, like, 'cause they would maybe know who's handling it on that particular day, because things come up, right? So I just.
As it stands, you've got our.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yes.
if it's not acceptable to you, we're fine with her.
We will rework this.
As it stands, we got 5 minutes left. What I would like to do is just. Actually, you know what? We'll hold it for next time.
When do we think there's going to be a time?
I wrote in the schedule.
I guess this is not gonna be till the middle of August.
Probably.
Yeah, with, right, start of school coming up, that's. kind of my assumption.
Probably the week
That would be better.
after, probably the week after school starts was a good time because
Like August 16th, 17th time frame, a month from now. Is there like, the language that you have there needs to be explained? It can't be passed across for reading and your call.
I can pass it. And we can go
Article
through it.
3 looks like it's related to.
This is related 100% to the clock in and clock in. Okay, so I'll pass it and we can have a brief discussion because we've discussed this on numerous occasions already.
In relation to summer school?
Well, yeah, in relation to SARS. And, but like I said, I don't want to extend our time frame.
I understand.
Respect everyone's time here, so we'll pass. You guys can, and we'll talk about it briefly, and then you guys can consider it for next time.
It's a 3, right?
Yes,
Okay. That's what I thought.
essentially, we're looking at,
3 the back.
we've added red language in here, underlined red language. This is our LCS proposal, right? And the language is really just to replace current language that's there. So you want to look at it. Essentially, you can read the language, but essentially what we,
The hours or the D?
Where are you looking at?
J1,
There one.
last sentence. What in the hours?
Oh, that's a mistake, sorry. Yeah, scratch that, I guess my spell check didn't get that, but the bottom line on it is that for hourly, so generally speaking, teachers are exempt. However, hourly teachers who are paid on an hourly basis are not exempt employees. They're not, according to the Fair Labor Standards Act. So one of the key requirements of a salary position is that you have to be paid on a salary basis. If you're not paid on a salary basis, you're paid on an hourly basis, you're not exempt. And so we have an obligation at that point in time, according to law, to track the time that individual works. And so all we've done in this language is really outline that we, that we need teachers that are hourly teachers. Either they're hourly because it's a secondary assignment, or just, it's supplemental in terms of, maybe a training or something along those lines, that they actually document their hours on an hour-for-hour basis, utilizing the, district approved timekeeping system, which right now is true across the board. Okay. So that's what.
What about 22?
22 is just basically you want to squeeze all of these.
Well, that way I can look at it and do, I've seen it in a month, it's been so long.
So 22 basically addresses payroll reduction. Okay.
Sure, yeah.
And so as you guys are aware, Senate Bill 256. 256 basically eliminated payroll deduction. And so there you go. Can you get it? Oh, sorry. I think Chris, yeah. And so basically what we're doing is replacing all of 22 with a line that says, in accordance with Senate Bill 256 signed into law May 9, 2023, the district shall not deduct LCTA membership dues from the pay of any employee. And that,
Don't worry about time.
so that is simply in accordance with the statute.
Yeah.
And if you have a response, then I'm glad to hear your response at our next meeting. And I'm totally open to hearing you. I just, as of right now, we've exceeded our time.
We worked a good job. So 22.07 talks about, talks about just payroll deduction slots. Is the district proposed because we have creative benefits, we got American Fidelity and others that are associated with us. But is there anything that we need to be in mind of that you would be opposed to maintaining the payroll deductions?
I'd have to check the legality of it. I'd have to, so
It's not dues.
In general, we're not adverse to doing anything that we've done in the past that doesn't violate the statute. Okay, so if you've got things along those lines that you'd like to continue, then you're willing to consider that and make sure that it's not in violation of the statute. And if it's not in violation of the statute, then sure, we have no problem.
Jay, would this mean that employees at the hourly rate, like some of our ACE would be able to get overtime? And does that also mean that they're paid for all the work that they do in case, like a salaried person, if you're 3 hours and it takes 5 hours to do it, you get your bank.
To answer your question, if it's an hourly position, they are eligible.
And they will be paid for all the work that they do. It's not going to be limited. You can get 3 hours, but if it takes 5, it's 5.
I mean, that's outlined in FLSA.
Right.
So I mean, to me, that's a given, but yeah, I'll answer your question and say, yes, of course, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And if you want to, we can